This story is titled, My Parents Put Me $93,000 in Debt to Fund Their Golden Boy Lifestyle. So I took action and now they're broke and begging for forgiveness. Hey everyone, before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Hey, I'm Ryan, 29, based in Chicago. I've been working as a creative director at a tech company for a while now, and life is decent. Not perfect, but decent. My job pays well. I live in a killer apartment downtown, and I've got a solid group of friends. The family side of things, not so great. Let me paint a picture for you. My parents have always played favorites, and guess who's the MVP in this game? My younger brother, Jason. He's 25, still living at home, and has somehow managed to avoid real work his entire life. He's the guy who spends hours gaming and posting on TikTok, while I've been grinding for everything I have. But hey, it's family, right? I always thought I'd look out for them no matter what. Until recently. It all started with a call from my bank. I was sitting at work, reviewing some mock-ups for a client campaign, when my phone buzzed. Normally, I'd let unknown numbers go to voicemail, but something told me to pick this one up. Mr. Collins, this is David from the bank. We're calling to verify a charge on your account. A charge? Weird. I hadn't used that particular credit card in months. It's my just-in-case card that I keep for emergencies. My heart dropped a little. What charge? We noticed a transaction for $50,000 to a travel agency. Was this authorized by you? $50,000. My brain froze for a second. Number. Definitely not. David explained that the charge was flagged as unusual and that they wanted to confirm before processing it. He told me they'd hold it until I could verify further details. I thanked him, hung up, and immediately logged into my account. And there it was. A $50,000 pending charge for what appeared to be a luxury Mediterranean cruise. I stared at the screen, trying to piece together how this could have happened. Did my card get hacked? Did I accidentally share my info somewhere? Then it hit me, my parents. Now, to give some context, I've been helping out my family financially for years. My parents always claimed they were struggling, so I sent them $2,000 a month to help cover mortgage, utilities, and groceries. Meanwhile, Jason stayed home, jobless, contributing nothing. But funding a luxury cruise? That was a new low. I called my mom immediately. Hey mom, weird question, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Did you or dad use my credit card for something? There was a pause, and then she laughed. Oh, Ryan, don't overreact. We thought you wouldn't mind. Mind? I hadn't even told her what I was calling about yet. What do you mean, don't overreact? Did you charge a cruise to my card? Well, yes, she said, as casually as if I'd asked her if she picked up milk at the store. It's for Jason's birthday. He's been so stressed lately, and we wanted to give him a little break. Jason? Stressed? The guy who plays Call of Duty for 10 hours straight? Mom, that's not a little break. That's 50 grand, I snapped. She sighed. Ryan, you're doing so well at work. We figured you wouldn't mind helping out your brother. It's family, after all. Helping out? Helping out is lending someone $20 for gas, not dropping $50,000 on a vacation I didn't even know about. You didn't even ask me, I said. Do you realize how illegal this is? You can't just take my credit card and use it like it's Monopoly money. Oh, don't be so dramatic, she said, brushing me off. It's just money. You'll make it back in no time. Besides, Jason was so excited. He even said he'd bring you a souvenir. I was floored. A souvenir? As if a keychain from Santorini would make up for this blatant theft. I couldn't even respond at first. My mom was talking about this like it was a normal, everyday thing. Like she had a right to my money because I happened to make more than Jason. Mom, I finally said, my voice shaking with anger. This isn't okay. I'm reporting the charge. She scoffed. You wouldn't do that to your own family. Watch me. I hung up before she could say anything else. My hands were shaking as I dialed Jason's number. Hey bro, what's up? Jason answered, his voice cheerful. What's up? Are you serious? I said. Explain why my credit card funded your Mediterranean cruise. Jason laughed. Oh, that. Yeah, Mom said it'd be fine. She said you wouldn't mind since you're loaded. Loaded? I work my ass off to afford my life. It's not like I have wads of cash lying around for him to blow. Jason, this isn't fine. It's theft. You stole $50,000 from me. Stole? Bro, relax. We're family. It's not a big deal. You'll be fine. Not a big deal? I was practically shouting now. You spent my money without permission. That's a huge deal. Jason laughed again, like this was all one big joke. You're so uptight, man. Maybe you need a vacation too. That was it. I hung up and immediately called my bank back. I told them the charge wasn't authorized and filed a fraud claim. David, the bank rep, assured me they'd investigate and freeze the account in the meantime. When I hung up, I felt a mix of anger and disbelief. My own family had used me, and they didn't even care. The next day, Mom called me furious. "Ryan, how could you report the charge?" I said. "Maybe he'll learn something about consequences." "You're being selfish," she yelled. Mom tried to argue, but I wasn't listening anymore. I hung up, knowing full well this wasn't the end of it. I thought the $50,000 cruise was bad. Let's just say it wasn't just a cruise. Buckle up, because this is where things get ridiculous. The day after I filed the fraud claim, I got a call from the bank again. David said something that almost made me laugh, not out of humor, but out of pure disbelief. "Mr. Collins, while investigating the $50,000 charge, we noticed additional transactions on the same card. Did you also authorize $23,000 for private tours, $8,000 for luxury hotel upgrades, and another $12,000 for dining expenses?" "What?" I nearly shouted into the phone. David cleared his throat. "These charges were made over the past 3 weeks. Would you like to dispute these as well?" "Yes! Dispute every single one of them," I said, my voice practically cracking from the effort of holding back my rage. By the time I hung up, I felt like I needed to punch a wall or scream into a void. My family hadn't just charged $50,000. No, they'd racked up $93,000 in total. That wasn't just audacity, that was an entirely new level of delusion. Did Jason think he was a movie star? I decided it was time to confront the family. No more beating around the bush. First up, Jason. I called him and, surprise, surprise, he didn't answer. So, I sent a text. "Pick up the phone. Now." A few minutes later, he called back. His tone casual, like nothing was wrong. "Hey bro, what's up?" "What's up?" "Jason, the bank just told me you spent an extra $43,000 on tours and hotels." "What the hell is wrong with you?" Jason sighed like I was inconveniencing him. "Ryan, why are you freaking out? It's not like I wasted it. I spent it wisely." "Wisely?" I barked. "You spent $93,000 on a vacation you couldn't afford. You're unemployed. How is that wise?" "Well, I couldn't just take a cruise and skip out on the experiences. What's the point of going if you don't live it up?" Oh, I was done. Done with his excuses, done with his entitlement. "Jason, do you even hear yourself? You stole from me. This isn't your money. It's mine." "Relax, Ryan. You'll get it back," he said, like this was no big deal. "You're damn right I'll get it back," I snapped. Next, I called my mom. She answered on the first ring, probably already bracing for the conversation. "Ryan, I know you're upset, but..." "Upset? Mom, upset doesn't even begin to cover it. You and Jason charged 93 grand to my card. 93,000. "Oh, stop exaggerating," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "Jason just wanted to have a little fun. You're making this a bigger deal than it needs to be." "Bigger deal?" I practically growled. "Mom, this is fraud." "Don't be so dramatic, Ryan. You're always talking about your bonuses and promotions. We figured you could afford it. And that makes it okay?" She sighed, like she was tired of my antics. "Ryan, you're part of this family. Family takes care of each other. It's not a big deal." "Oh, it's a big deal, all right," I said, my voice cold. "Because I filed a fraud claim. The bank is reversing the charges and transferring them to Jason. He'll be the one paying for all of this." There was a long pause. Then, she exploded. "How could you do this to your own brother? Ryan, you're going to ruin his life." "Ruin his life?" I repeated, incredulous. "He's 25 years old, Mom. Maybe it's time he started taking responsibility for his actions." "He's just a kid," she protested. "A kid? Mom, he's not a kid. He's a grown man who stole $93,000 and thought he could get away with it. That's not my fault. That's yours for enabling him." Her tone shifted from anger to pleading. "Please, Ryan, don't do this. We'll find a way to pay you back. Just call the bank and undo the claim." I laughed bitterly. "Pay me back? With what money? You can't even afford your own bills without my help." "No, Mom. This is on Jason now. Maybe this will be the wake-up call he needs." I hung up before she could say anything else. That night, I got a frantic voicemail from Jason. "Ryan, what the hell? The bank says I owe them $93,000. You need to fix this. I can't pay that kind of money. Call me back, please." I didn't call him back. Instead, I poured myself a drink, sat on my couch, and let myself enjoy the silence. For once, I wasn't cleaning up their messes. The next morning, I woke up to another voicemail, this time from my dad. He's usually the quieter one, the peacemaker in the family, but even he sounded desperate. "Ryan, I know you're upset, but don't you think this is a bit harsh? Jason made a mistake. We all make mistakes. Please, son, give him another chance. Call me back." I didn't. By the end of the day, my phone had exploded with calls and texts from my parents and Jason. Every message was some variation of, "You're ruining Jason's life," or "How could you do this to us?" But I ignored them all. For the first time, I felt like I was standing up for myself. They'd taken advantage of me for years, treating me like a bottomless wallet, and now they were finally facing the consequences. I wasn't going to fix this for them. After the bank finished their investigation and pinned the $93,000 bill squarely on Jason, I realized it wasn't enough to just stop the theft. I needed to completely cut them off financially. No more monthly payments to help with the bills, no more covering for their irresponsibility, and definitely no more being the family safety net. The next day, I sent a group text to the family. Effective immediately, I will no longer contribute financially to this household. You're all on your own. Within minutes, my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. Mom, Ryan, you can't just abandon your family like this. Jason is going through a lot right now. Jason, wow, guess you're too good for us now, huh? Dad, Ryan, let's talk about this calmly. You're making a mistake. I ignored them all. Instead, I started making plans for myself. First, I decided to move out of my old apartment. It was close to their house, and I'd chosen it originally to be convenient for helping them out. But that convenience had become a leash. It was time for a fresh start. I found a sleek new apartment downtown, bigger, better, and further away from their nonsense. Signing the lease felt like the first real step toward freedom. I packed up my things that same week, feeling lighter with every box I taped up. Meanwhile, Jason had started spiraling. He called me about a week later, his tone frantic. "Ryan, I'm in trouble, man. The collectors are calling nonstop. They're saying I owe 93 grand. I don't know what to do." I let him ramble for a bit, my face completely blank as I stared out the window of my new place. When he finally stopped talking, I said, "Sounds like a problem you created for yourself." "Ryan, come on," he whined. "You've got to help me out. Just lend me a few thousands to get the collectors off my back." "Lend you a few thousand?" I repeated, incredulous. "Jason, you stole 93 grand from me. Why on earth would I give you another dime?" "Because I'm your brother," he snapped, as if that was some kind of magical argument. "And what does that mean exactly?" I asked. "That I'm supposed to let you rob me blind and then bail you out when it blows up in your face?" "It wasn't like that," he protested. I thought you wouldn't care. You've got so much money, Ryan. What's 90 grand to you?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He still didn't get it. "Jason, this isn't about the money. It's about the principle. You used me, and now you're paying the price. Good luck. Ryan, please." I hung up and blocked his number. Of course, Jason wasn't the only one freaking out. My parents were in full panic mode too. Mom started leaving me these long, guilt-trippy voicemails every day. "Ryan, you're tearing this family apart. How can you sleep at night knowing your brother is suffering? He's your brother, for God's sake. We're supposed to stick together as a family." Stick together? Funny how that only seemed to apply when they wanted something from me. She even showed up at my office one afternoon, completely unannounced. My assistant buzzed me to say there was a woman in the lobby claiming to be my mother. I sighed and told her to send Mom up. She walked into my office looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her hair was messy, and her eyes were red-rimmed. "Ryan, please," she said, her voice cracking. "Jason's in trouble. The collectors are going to ruin his life. We need your help. You're the only one who can help him. Please, Ryan. We'll pay you back." I laughed bitterly. "With what money? You can't even keep up with your own bills without my help. Don't act like you're suddenly going to find 90 grand lying around." Mom's face crumpled, but I didn't feel any sympathy. She'd spent years enabling Jason, covering for him, making excuses for his behavior, and now she wanted me to clean up the mess. "No, Mom," I said firmly. "This is on Jason. He made his bed and now he has to lie in it. I'm not fixing this for him. Ryan, please, you're his big brother. He looks up to you." "No, Mom," I interrupted. "He doesn't look up to me. He takes advantage of me. And so do you. That ends now." I knew I'd done the right thing. Cutting them off wasn't easy, but it was necessary. They'd taken me for granted for too long, and I wasn't going to let it continue. Of course, they didn't see it that way. Over the next week, my phone continued to blow up with calls and texts. They tried every trick in the book, guilt, anger, flattery, to get me to change my mind. "Ryan, we're your parents. Don't we deserve your support? Bro, I'll pay you back eventually. Just give me some time." I ignored every single message. I was done. I expected Jason's life to start crumbling after the fraud claim went through, but I underestimated just how quickly things would spiral out of control for him. Watching it happen was like seeing a slow-motion car crash. Messy, avoidable, and entirely his fault. The first sign of trouble was when Mom called me, panicking. Ryan, did you know Jason's been getting calls from debt collectors? She asked, as if this were breaking news. Of course I know, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. That's what happens when you rack up $93,000 you can't pay back. The collectors are doing their job. Ryan, you don't understand, Mom said, her tone almost pleading. They're calling non-stop, threatening legal action. He's terrified. I snorted. Terrified? Good. Maybe he'll finally learn something. Mom was silent for a moment, but I could feel her seething through the phone. You're being unreasonable, she said finally. Jason's not a bad person. He just made a mistake. A mistake? I repeated, incredulous. Mom, it's a choice, and he's going to have to live with it. I hung up before she could argue further. Jason, on the other hand, wasn't as quiet as Mom. Since I'd blocked his number, he resorted to calling from unknown numbers, messaging me on social media, and even emailing me. I ignored it all until one day, out of sheer curiosity, I opened one of his emails. The subject line read, "Please help me, Ryan." In the email, he rambled about how the collectors were threatening to take legal action, how he couldn't sleep at night, and how he was so sorry for what he did. But the part that really stood out was this gem. I know I messed up, but you're my big brother. Isn't it your job to help me when I'm in trouble? I stared at the screen, baffled by his audacity. My job? My job was to fix his mess? Where was that written? Last I checked, my job was to live my own life, and not act as Jason's personal bailout fund. Still, I decided to respond. Not out of sympathy, but because I wanted to set the record straight. Jason, you're not in trouble because of me. You're in trouble because of your own choices. I didn't tell you to steal my card. I didn't tell you to spend 70 grand, and I'm definitely not going to pay for it now. Stop blaming other people for your mistakes. It's time to grow up. I hit send and blocked his email address. Around this time, Jason finally got a job. I heard about it from Mom, who called me in tears, saying, "Jason's working at a diner. Can you believe that? My poor boy is flipping burgers just to survive." And, I said, unimpressed, that's more than he's done in years. Maybe this is what he needs to learn the value of hard work. But he's miserable, she cried. You don't understand, Ryan. He's not cut out for this kind of work. No one's cut out for flipping burgers, Mom. But people do it because they need to survive. He's not special. I could hear her frustration building. Ryan, this is your fault. If you just helped him, he wouldn't have to degrade himself like this. I laughed bitterly. Degrade himself? Mom, you're acting like he's working in a coal mine. He's flipping burgers. Millions of people do it every day, and they don't cry about it. If Jason thinks this is beneath him, that's his problem. She hung up on me. I guess I wasn't saying what she wanted to hear. Jason didn't last long at the diner. 2 weeks later, Mom called me again, this time with even more drama in her voice. Ryan, Jason quit his job. He said it was too demeaning, and the manager was rude to him. Let me guess, I said, rolling my eyes. He's back to doing nothing? He's looking for something better, she said defensively. You know how hard it is to find a good job these days. I couldn't help but laugh. No, Mom, I know how hard it is to work. Jason doesn't. He's never had to try because you and Dad have always coddled him. This is the result. Don't you dare blame us, she snapped. We did the best we could. Did you? I shot back. Because it seems to me like you've spent Jason's whole life making excuses for him, instead of holding him accountable. Now you're expecting me to pick up the pieces, and it's not going to happen. She hung up again, and I was left shaking my head at the sheer absurdity of it all. The worst part? Jason wasn't just relying on Mom and Dad to fix things. He started burning bridges with his friends too. Apparently, he'd been couch surfing since quitting the diner. But people quickly got tired of his freeloading. I heard through the grapevine, aka my aunt, who's the family gossip, that he'd been kicked out of 2 different apartments in the span of a month. He's running out of places to go, my aunt told me. You might want to step in before he ends up on the street. I shrugged. Not my problem. Jason needs to figure this out on his own. She gave me a disapproving look. But I didn't care. Not anymore. By the end of the month, Jason was screwed. No job, no couch to crash on, no one left to sponge off. Mom and Dad were barely holding it together themselves, and their calls to me became less about guilt-tripping and more about sheer desperation. Ryan, we don't know what to do anymore, Dad said one night, his voice heavy with exhaustion. Jason's lost. He needs help. Then help him, I said simply. We don't have the resources, he admitted. That's not my fault, I replied. Dad sighed, and for once he didn't argue. I think he knew I was right. Jason's fall from grace was ugly, but it was necessary. He'd spent his whole life coasting on other people's generosity, and now that it was gone, he had to learn how to stand on his own. Whether he actually would or not, that remained to be seen. By the time my parents started calling me daily, It was clear they were feeling the full weight of Jason's mess. I'd officially cut off my financial support, and without my regular $2,000 a month, they were struggling to keep up with their bills. Between Jason's debt collectors hounding them and their mounting household expenses, it was only a matter of time before their house of cards collapsed. It started with the voicemails. "Ryan, please. We don't know what to do anymore. Jason's debt collectors won't stop calling the house, and we're behind on the mortgage. We need your help." I still didn't answer. Then came the in-person ambushes. One Saturday morning, I was halfway through my coffee when there was a knock on my apartment door. I opened it to find my mom and dad standing there, looking like they'd aged 5 years in the last month. "Ryan, we need to talk," Mom said, her voice shaky. I sighed and stepped aside, letting them in. They sat on my couch, fidgeting like they didn't know where to start. "All right," I said, crossing my arms. "What's so urgent that you had to show up uninvited?" Mom's eyes filled with tears. "We're losing the house, Ryan," she said softly. "We've missed 2 mortgage payments, and if we don't pay by the end of the month, they'll foreclose on us." I blinked, surprised but not shocked. I knew they'd been living beyond their means for years, even with my help. Without my monthly contributions, it was only a matter of time before the cracks started to show. "And you want me to fix it?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Dad leaned forward, his hands clasped tightly. "Ryan, we're not asking you to pay off everything. Just help us get through this rough patch. 1 payment. That's all we need." "1 payment?" I repeated, my voice rising. "Dad, you're asking me to bail you out again. Do you realize this is exactly why you're in this mess? You've been enabling Jason for years, and now it's catching up to you." Mom started sobbing, but I didn't flinch. "We didn't know what else to do," she cried. "Jason needed us, and we couldn't just abandon him. And now you're expecting me to do what you couldn't, abandon my own financial stability to save someone who doesn't even want to save himself," I said coldly. Dad sighed, rubbing his temples. "Ryan, we made mistakes. We know that. But this is our home. You grew up there. Doesn't that mean anything to you?" "It does," I admitted. "But it doesn't mean enough for me to throw away my future. You had years to make better choices, and you didn't. I'm not cleaning up your mess." Mom tried one last time. "Please, Ryan. We've always supported you." I held up a hand, cutting her off. "Stop right there. The only reason I've been able to get where I am today is because I stopped depending on you a long time ago. You didn't support me, I supported you, and I'm done." The silence was deafening. They looked at me like I'd just slapped them, but I didn't care. I was done feeling guilty for standing up for myself. A few weeks later, I got a call from my aunt, the unofficial family gossip. "Ryan, did you hear about your parents?" she asked, her voice dripping with concern. "No, what happened?" I asked, already bracing for bad news. "They sold the house," she said. "Apparently, they couldn't keep up with the payments after you stopped helping. They're moving into a small apartment near downtown." I felt a pang of guilt, but it quickly faded. Selling the house was probably the best decision they'd made in years. It was a consequence they couldn't escape, and maybe it would finally force them to reevaluate their priorities. "What about Jason?" I asked, curious. My aunt sighed. "Oh, he's still a mess. None of his friends want to deal with him for more than a few days, and your parents can't afford to support him anymore." "Good," I said simply. A few days later, I got a text from Mom. It was short and to the point. "We've moved into the apartment. It's not much, but it's all we can afford now. I hope you're happy." I didn't reply. Meanwhile, Jason's life continued to spiral. Word got back to me through a mutual friend that he'd tried to get another job but quit after a week because it was too stressful. Apparently, he thought the collectors would eventually give up if he just ignored them long enough. I heard through the same friend that Jason had burned through most of his social connections. No one wanted to put up with him for long. His entitled attitude didn't exactly win him any sympathy points, and he was quickly running out of places to go. At one point, he even tried crashing at a distant cousin's house, but they kicked him out after 2 days when they caught him ordering food delivery on their account. Classic Jason. As for my parents, the reality of their new living situation started to set in. They went from a comfortable suburban home to a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in a rundown part of town. Dad had to pick up a part-time job to make ends meet, and Mom, who hadn't worked in decades, was struggling to adjust to their new budget. Every now and then, I'd get updates from my aunt about how they were doing. "Your dad's been talking about looking for a better job," she said once. "And your mom's been learning to coupon. Can you believe that?" I couldn't help but laugh. "Maybe it'll be good for them," I said. "They've spent too long living in denial. This might be what they need to finally change." Update: my entitled brother Jason didn't pay the collectors, and things went downhill fast. Hey everyone, it's been a while since my last post, and a lot has happened since I cut off my freeloading family. If you've read my earlier posts, you know the deal. Jason stole $93,000 using my credit card for a luxury cruise and all the extras, and I filed a fraud claim. The debt got shifted back onto him, and I cut off all financial support to my parents. Well, turns out, when you ignore debt collectors, they don't just go away. Who knew, right? A few months after the fraud claim went through, Jason's brilliant strategy of, if I ignore it, it'll disappear, finally blew up in his face. The collectors escalated things and took him to court. My cousin Sam, the unofficial family reporter, texted me about it. Jason's being sued. He's losing it. Collectors are going after everything. At first, I wasn't going to get involved, but curiosity got the better of me. I showed up at court that day, sat in the back, and watched as Jason tried to squirm his way out of it. The collector's lawyer was ruthless, laying out every charge Jason racked up with my stolen card. Jason tried every excuse in the book. I didn't know it was real. I was gonna pay it back. And my personal favorite, it's not my fault. Honestly, I half expected him to blame the dog for the charges. The judge wasn't buying any of it. Mr. Collins, you've ignored every opportunity to resolve this issue, and the evidence is clear, the judge said. You are liable for the full amount of $93,000 plus court fee. If you cannot pay, the collectors are authorized to pursue wage garnishment and asset seizure. Jason turned ghost white. He started stammering about how he didn't have anything and wasn't trying to avoid it, but the judge just sighed and moved on to the next case. It was oddly satisfying to watch Jason face the reality of his actions. After the court ruling, the collectors wasted no time. Jason's wages, what little he made from his part-time job at a warehouse, started getting garnished immediately. Mom called me about a week later, full of righteous indignation. Ryan, how could you let this happen to your brother? She demanded. Let this happen? I said, trying not to laugh. Mom, did you think there wouldn't be consequences? He's barely making enough to eat, she whined. And? I shot back. Maybe it's time he started taking life seriously. Wage garnishment sucks, but maybe it'll teach him not to spend money he doesn't have. She cried, of course. Mom loves to play the victim when things don't go her way. But I didn't budge. A few weeks after the wage garnishment started, Jason's life spiraled even further. Sam called me again, barely able to contain her laughter. Guess what? She said. Jason's car just got repossessed. They towed it right out of his job's parking lot. I almost choked on my drink. Are you serious? Dead serious, she said. Apparently, he missed a few payments, and with the collectors going after him, the dealership wasn't taking any chances. He had to take the bus home. The mental image of Jason, who always acted like he was too good for public transportation, sitting on a crowded bus, was priceless. Jason is still working at the warehouse, but between the wage garnishments and his lack of financial literacy, he's barely scraping by. Last I heard, he's saving up for a beat-up car but hasn't made much progress. Mom and Dad are adjusting to their new reality, but they've stopped asking me for money, so I guess they've finally learned I'm not their personal ATM anymore. Sometimes people need to face the full weight of their consequences to grow. Jason might still be in denial, but my parents seem to be getting it. Slowly, but surely. Some people learn from books, others learn the hard way. Jason? He's still trying to figure out how to spell consequences, but hey, at least it's not my problem anymore. To anyone dealing with a family like mine, stand your ground. It's not your job to fix their messes, and you don't owe them your sanity. Set boundaries, stick to them, and don't let the guilt get to you.